Hi, this is Chief Education Officer Bill Olson, and welcome to another School District Update. Well, it is my absolute pleasure today to have with me one of the great stars of the Merrimack School District, Phil Carl. Phil has been with the school district for 35 years in the engineering and technology program, specializing in woodwork. Many of you have probably taken a course or a class with Phil, or classes, and know what it means to participate in his outstanding class with his outstanding instructional abilities. So Phil, welcome. Great to have you here as a guest. And I'm going to back up a little bit before we talk about some of these great projects here from the students. Tell me when you first had an inkling that you might want to be a teacher and go into education.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill, for the invite for this afternoon, and have a chance to speak to the community in regards to woodworking and technology education here at Merrimack. And well, with the beginning of interest, I was the youngest of two brothers. There was three of us and so forth, and I had two older brothers, and both my parents were in education. And I remember my first memories of actually doing some mechanical things is when I was about 5 years old, and it was time for Phil to have his own bicycle because my older brothers didn't want to share anymore. And so at that time, my brothers had their bikes, and my dad, we went on a Saturday, we went to the transfer station and picked up 3 bicycles, and with my older brothers, we took out the wrenches, and with the 3 bikes, we ended up putting one together and a can of spray paint, and that was my first bicycle. So that was my first introduction to that I remember in regards to doing some things mechanical.
It's interesting because I was just thinking, as you said, that's something you would remember for the rest of your life. Piecing that together, seeing how everything works. Now I know that, if I recall correctly, you went to Keene State, right? Tell me about that and your major there.
Well, the Keene State is that I did take a year off after high school. High school was a good experience for me. In some areas I could have done better, and other areas I was fine, but I needed to take a gap year. And I traveled out west with a friend of mine, and we did the ski thing, and I was a breakfast cook, and went down the coast of California and all that. But with that life experience, it probably saved me several years in the long term. And I always enjoyed, I had several fabulous shop teachers at Conval High School. Bob McQuillan was one, and I had a great English teacher, and also a couple others that enlightened me, spent that extra 10 minutes here and there. When they saw Phil was drifting a little bit, they would sit me down and talk and say, hey, here's some options, and they really kept me on track. So with that year experience after high school, I found out what I didn't want to do, which was, I look back, was so important. And in that early spring, I said, okay, I'm ready for school. And I had some great shop classes, and I said, okay, Keene State is a place that I'd like to go to. Has the industrial arts curriculum, which is a comprehensive curriculum in regards to electricity and machine tool, woodworking, plastics, and drafting and printing. And so there were 7 areas that I had experience in, and I really gravitated toward the woodworking aspect. Sophomore year, I decided whether I wanted to go industry or education. And sitting at the drafting table for a 3-hour long block period, I looked up at the fluorescent lights and I said, is this really where I want to spend 50 out of the 52 weeks a year? And so I chose education.
Yeah, great, and we're glad you did. You know, you mentioned a couple of minutes ago about a teacher or teachers who maybe inspired and motivated you, and that is so common to people who decide to get into education. You know, when I interview prospective candidates for teaching positions, I always ask them to tell me about a favorite teacher that they had in life. And it generally only takes them 2 seconds or so. And, you know, the common denominator is that those are teachers who connected with them, inspired and motivated them, encouraged them who believed in them, but also, even more importantly, helped them believe in themselves. And so tell me a little bit more about a person or persons in education who really made a difference in your life.
Oh, well, as I mentioned, Bob McQuillan, he was the shop teacher, and Jill Lawler was the English teacher. And then in college, I had an automotive teacher that was, and Charlie Sheaf, he was the woodworking instructor in building construction at Keene State. And I've had Charlie as a guest demonstrator here at the high school several times. He's a highly master lathe turner and carpenter and so forth, and being able to have, being in the presence of his class and learning his skills, demeanor, and style in regards to problem solving and manipulating machines and all that was just tremendous. And also on the other note is that when I was a student teacher here, Ralph Dwyer, who was actually brought up in Merrimack, he was my mentor, and he was a master craftsman and also did building in the summers. But Ralph was a fantastic mentor for my first 5-6 months of my student teaching experience. And one note with Ralph, and I've never experienced this with any other teacher, is that when he was in the class and he needed to get everybody's attention, he would stand up, put his hand up, and he goes, "Okay, now." But he would lower, I raised my voice, right? He would lower his voice, and it was pure magic. The whole students would just know when Mr. Dwyer spoke and he lowered his voice, it was time to stop, turn around, and he had something very important to say.
It's amazing how some people, some educators have a command like that. Don't have to say very much, but those just little cues, whether they're verbal or nonverbal, students pick up on, and it all starts with respect, certainly. You know, over 35 years, tell me how your instruction or what students have been learning has changed because of the evolution of the economy, the evolution of society and the world, and globalization. What's different now than when you first started?
Well, when I finished with Keene State, it was manufacturing. And so the model was that if there was a project, say they were making a chair or a bookcase or something like that for that particular class, is that the class would, call it knockout, but make a number of pieces of whatever number of pieces that were needed to make that project. A student would be at the drill press, and what they would do is they'd get 25 pieces, they would drill the 3 holes, and then it would move on to the compound miter saw, they would make their cuts, and then it would move to the different machines, so the material would pass by the students. And that's what the trend was at that time. And so that's how I started, and I realized pretty quickly with teaching young people and students that that's not really grabbing their interest. That's not developing the student to the student's potential and interests. And the student may have a little more interest in this area or that area. And so after about 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years, I realized that no, I need to bring it back to more of the, call it old school, where a student then has responsibility of their piece. And they're responsible for their piece and the outcome. And so I started changing the projects and moving in that direction. And having students feel that ownership gives them pride, self-confidence. Also reflection is that they can look at what they did one day and then look back and say, oh, geez, I did that okay, but I'm sure I can do it better the next time. So there's that whole reflection, analysis, peer. You know, things can be a little competitive.
Sure.
You know, we are in a competitive world and so forth, and so there can be that little peer competitiveness. But I find it was much more of a healthier environment for the students, and it embraced my teaching in regards to now I could look at the individuals, at the students more as individuals, and see the gifts that they have, and say, okay, I know you're having a little challenge with this. Let's look at it this way, so I could start customizing personally to what the students need.
You know, for years we've talked about rigor and relevance in the curriculum, whether it's kindergarten or 12th grade. Sometimes students will say, how come we have to learn this? But this is a class that students can actually see a tangible product, can experience something Tell me about from your perspective, the importance of that in terms of a student being able to take something that's pretty raw and refining it, and we'll get to these in a few minutes,
Sure.
refining it into a beautiful piece.
Well, in the school, I look at it, one, my environment, I'm an elective, so with my intro class called Discover Woodworking, is that I can have freshmen through seniors in that class. And so there's not many places in the school where you can have that diversity in one location. Freshmen through seniors, males, females, all in one spot. And with that, it's a level playing field. Is that you may be a senior, but we still have to do the work. You may be a freshman, and you have to do the work. And so with that environment, and then students with my instruction, learning the skills and using the machines, we're taking raw material, we're manipulating it into something that they may find very interesting, they get hooked, they obtain ownership and commitment, and the biggest thing that it does is increase self-confidence. And my environment just happens to have machines and raw materials. It could happen in English class with a student writing a very nice poem. It could happen in drama class. It could happen in band or on the athletic field. So there's many places in our school environment where this can happen. And with me, it's just this. Yeah.
This is, I'll be honest with you, this is an area that I wish I had had some training in. My 4 children affectionately call me Mr. Fix-It, which means stay away from anything that needs, needs to be fixed, because it's probably going to break faster than it did originally. And you know, I'd love to have some carpentry skills, and I just have to ask you, how many times, in addition to all of your responsibilities with students, how many times over the years has a staff member come to you saying, "Hey Phil, do you think you could fix this for me?"
I don't have enough fingers. Yeah, it's constant, and yeah, it's frequent, and it's fine to have other colleagues and staff members come in, because the door is always open.
Yeah.
And if something I'm not able to accommodate for them, I may not have any ideas, but typically I can hopefully give some insight in regards to, well, you may want to ask these questions. So it's a matter of not that you're a master or of a certain task or so forth, but having enough insight to ask the appropriate questions, where you can be looked at as a fairly credible individual in regards to the plumber or the HVAC person or whatever the problem may be.
You know, the importance of vocational skills is, I spent 51 years in education in Massachusetts. And occasionally the Massachusetts Business Alliance for Education would do a research study on the skills that employers felt were necessary for their employees and for the viability of their companies. And I remember the survey that I looked at about 15 years ago or so showed that about 65% of the respondents indicated a high priority in students possessing vocational skills. And I think we got away from that for a while. You know, high schools, when I was growing up and went to high school in the 60s, we had a shop for carpentry, for plumbing, for electrical, for, I think it was auto mechanics. But if we were in a program where we expected to go to college, we could barely take advantage of any of those courses, which was very unfortunate. Then, because of economics, those vocational programs were removed from the individual schools and placed in regional centers, whether it's in Massachusetts or New Hampshire. And I've often felt that if there was one thing I could change in public education, it would bring the vocational programs back into local school districts, make them more available to as many students who wanted to participate and take those courses as possible, because sometimes there's a very limited number of openings, and it's very difficult for those students who have a passion in woodworking or electrical or plumbing or HVAC or other trades to get into these schools and to participate in those programs. And so I don't mean to editorialize, but it's one of those areas in public education that if I had to express some concerns over, that would be it. And you and I know we need an increasing number of tradespeople right now. I mean, there aren't enough plumbers, there aren't enough electricians, there aren't enough carpenters, HVAC people, and so I would encourage the parents, if your child is interested in a career technical education (CTE) program, participate in that. You know, we send students to Nashua and we send students to Hudson at Alvin High School. Those are very, very valuable and viable programs for a student to possess as they go through life. Phil, I'm going to ask you, and I know, I think you put this in front of me because it was a trick. You know, I looked at this and I said, well, I think I'll adjust this bowl.
Yeah. We need this on camera.
Tell me what you have here. I know these. I assume these are all student generated projects.
Yeah, these are all student generated, and I didn't bring any of the furniture pieces in due to space and so forth. But these are all made, except for the salt and pepper shaker here, on the wood lathe. We do have the largest lathe turning facility in New England, and so when I first started in the wood shop, we had 2 lathes. But when you have 16 students and you have 2 lathes, which 1 student per lathe, what are you going to do with the other 14? Yeah. And so we kind of left it to, at that point, is that the students would just be making knobs for drawer pulls and these things. However, I had a conversation with John Siegel, who's the one of the 4 founders of the Guild of New Hampshire Woodworkers, and John is one of the top spindle turners in the country. He's just phenomenal. If you ever have a chance to take a workshop with him, please do. And I asked John, if you were a furniture maker, would you be in the industry, in the business of woodworking? He goes, no, I'm a lathe turner. And so there's this left and right brain aspect. I have a dear friend, Dave Myers, master furniture maker, asked him the same question. If you were a lathe turner, would you be making and doing this business in furniture making? He goes, no, I'm a furniture maker. So that's left brain, right brain, you know? And so at that point, I realized with our population at that time, you know, we were like 1,500 or so. I said, if I'm just doing furniture making, I'm only accommodating to half of the population here in regards to some of the potential real talent or opening the possibilities for skills. And so I started increasing through grants with the Guild of New Hampshire Woodworker. They've been very, very generous to Merrimack in regards to supporting the program with grants. And so we're up to now 16 lathes in the classroom. Wow. Which is the largest in New England. I host Guild events once or twice a year. I'm actually hosting one on the 24th of May, which is a bowl turning event. So Guild members will be coming in. Students will be there with their parents. And Guild members will mentor those who are just learning bowl turning and who just need to refine some skills. So here, I kind of went off track here a little bit.
That's okay.
But I have a student. This is actually, let me start here. Dimitri Smith. All right, he made this. He was a 3rd place finisher in the New England woodworking competition. This is out of ambrosia maple. So this came from cordwood, firewood. It was going to be firewood, and we have the ambrosia beetle that burrows through, and then with that, it disturbs the cell structure, and we get these streaks, which is beautiful. But something I do with my students is that the Guild's been very supportive, and they have a lot of money for grants for schools, is that for my lathe turning class, the students' final is that they have to make something that they're going to donate to the Guild. And the Guild there's the Sunapee Fair up at the League of New England Craftsmen Fair. That's the first week in August. They have a raffle station there. And the students have their pieces. It's all labeled Merrimack High School and all this. And so they sell raffles, and then you know, the winner, the piece goes to them. And that money goes directly back into grants for schools. So it's a way of us supporting the Guild, which the Guild then supports us. And the other aspect is for students in regards to making something and giving, donating. So many times, you know, we have these, there's these blinders, and actually having a person that's, yes, I'm making this and I really want to give it. Boy, that's special. And I think that is lost a little bit. So Dimitri Smith made this. He's donating that into the raffle. Spencer, this is a multi-axis cherry bowl, and it's made on 2 axes, so there's geometry involved here. This is also submitted in the Deerfield Fair, and He's done extremely well. This is a piece of hickory that Dimitri brought in, but another student turned this bowl here. And here is a two-piece one in regards to it's a technique where you have a mahogany and the maple on top and the bandsaw cut, and we have some veneer dye material here.
So this is a combination
mahogany and maple.
It's
a special bandsaw cutting technique with then using a dyed veneer to adhere to be as a separation between the two, which helps also accent. And so the other thing which is kind of fun with that is that I call this the non-symmetry project. We're so used to the like a house with a door in the center and two windows and the chimney in the center and so forth. Well, this is a project that I encourage students to, okay, this is the non-symmetry. Let's have some fun with it. Let's put some stuff over here. It doesn't have to be balanced. And all of a sudden it's a way of thinking that they go, wow. And it's just tapping into the imagination. And we need to dream more, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We need to dream more.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And then these little pieces here, these are little mini hollow forms. This was on the lathe attached to a chuck here, but this is simply a branch that I got off my front yard, and I bring it in. And, during the fall, we have an opportunity to make, a tree ornament. This is a very large snowman. They can be much smaller and hang from the tree or whatnot.
Helping to teach students what is possible. How many times have we heard from a student saying, oh, I can't do that, that's impossible. And, my response from time to time would be to them, well, everything that is possible was once impossible, and so give it a try. And I mean, look at the ornate pieces of work here. We have a couple of minutes left. I want to kind of shift gears for a minute. First of all, thank you for bringing these items in. These are just absolutely fabulous. And I'd give anything to be able to produce those myself, but maybe I'll
swing by the shop sometime. We'll roll up the sleeves and pair of safety glasses, and we'll be ready to go.
You're going to miss this an awful lot, and we're going to miss you an awful lot. And what's in your future?
Wow, the future. Well, yes, it was heavy heart putting in the letter. And so heavy heart, this has been a routine that I've thoroughly enjoyed over the years. And I have students that are in their 40s and that see me around and say, hey, Mr. Carl, and so forth. But I'm very active in the Guild of New Hampshire Woodworkers, and myself and 5 other individuals, we started back in 2015, and now it's rolling again in regards to, it's called Guild in Schools. And so letters have gone out to all the school districts in New Hampshire where if there's a shop program that is in need for some assistance in regards to tool maintenance or lessons, coming in, do demonstrations for students, or teaching teachers after classes and so forth, is that there's going to be a network where a teacher can reach out saying, I'm looking to do hand-cut dovetails, or I'm looking to do some machine maintenance. We'll be contacted. We'll see the resources. There's over 700 Guild members in New Hampshire. Very talented people. And so if there's someone close by that can service, we'll be going in. I'm looking forward to hopefully once a month or once every 2 months going to a school for an all-day demonstration, working with students. That's it. We have some travel. I surf. I ski.
I surfed for 20 years when I was young.
Perfect.
Most fun activity I've ever participated in.
Oh, yeah, most challenging sport I've ever done.
I'll talk to you about that off air.
Yes, yeah.
I have to tell you, because we're gonna wrap up here, but great teachers shape the future. And they shape the future by making an extraordinary impact on students. And Phil is a person for whom thousands and thousands of Merrimack students over the years, over 35 years, I'm sure have said, Mr. Carl is one of my favorite teachers, or my favorite teacher. And when you think of that extraordinary legacy, I hope you'll think of that every day, because that's the impact you've had on students, and I can't thank you enough. This school district has been extraordinarily fortunate to have you here, because there aren't many people like you in this profession who have had such a profound impact on so many students. So I wish you nothing but the best, Phil.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for the kind words. Yes.
Thank you very much for being on the program. Looking forward to seeing you next time.